What's up guys, Doug Polk here, and in today's episode of Poker Hands, we take a close look at the dangers of bluffing and talking. We've all seen a bluff on TV where someone bets the river and then starts chatting. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Today we're going to take a look at one of these instances from this hand at Live at the Bike at 5,100 between Garrett and Buzz.
Hands for Buzz.
850.
And he's going to 3-bet Art. $100 big blinds for Buzz here. Just about, a little bit over.
2,200.
And a cold 4-bet from G-Man with pocket queens.
Wow, unlucky situation for Buzz.
Tough spot.
And with Garrett 4-betting, I could easily see Buzz shoving here with pocket tens.
You put yourself this one.
They're doing a lot of straddle rounds. This is not a straddle hand, so if it was,
Straddle.
this would likely definitely get in.
Oh yeah, 50 bigs with pocket tens, almost like a tournament. You're just going to get it in pre-flop. Especially versus someone like Garrett, whose image can be a maniac at times.
And Buzz is going to throw in a time extension chip, so he's going to think it through for another minute. Each player gets 5 one-minute time extension chips throughout the show for 5 hours. And you see players taking their times in these big pots using the time extension chips. Buzz trying to figure out his stack and if he can just call here. It's not a huge 4-bet from Garrett. 850 to 2,200. That's about 2.5x. And he makes the call, so Buzz not going to shove his stack in here.
Our hand begins at 5,100 over at Live at the Bike. The action opens with 9-7 suited opening it up from early position, and Buzz looks down to see pocket tens. This is a hand you could certainly 3-bet or flat, don't mind either way, and Buzz decides to go ahead and raise. If I had to pick one, I'd go with raise, but it's important to have both of those moves in your repertoire. The action now folds over to Garrett, who looks down at pocket queens. It's a bit of an interesting spot because you have an open and a 3-bet from early and mid position, so it's not exactly clear the way you should proceed with your range. But it's a safe thing to say that when you have the upper portion, going ahead and putting another raise in is never a bad play. In fact, if you wanted to play your entire range as a 4-bet here, I don't mind that either. Just be aware if you have a hand like tens and you might want to call here, well, in that situation, you're going to want to work some traps in too. Anyway, Garrett does decide to bump it up to 2,200 here with his pocket queens. And I gotta say, so far pre-flop, I like everyone's decision. I like all the bet sizes as well. Back over to Buzz, bit of a tough spot. When you're facing an open 3-bet, 4-bet, and you're looking at under the gun +2 hijack cutoff, well, it's a bit of an interesting situation. I know that there are people that would advocate to not go all in with many hands. I think if you have a hand like ace king or kings, it can be very reasonable to move in. But in this situation, Garrett's representing a very strong range. Yeah, if you go all in and he folds, you win a pretty big pot, so it does incentivize hands like ace king to jam, but tens isn't really one of those holdings. If you go all in here, you're going to get called by a lot of better hands. Maybe you're flipping with ace king, but queens plus has you cooked, and those are all going to call. For these reasons, I lean towards a call, which Buzz makes, and let's take a flop. But before we take a flop, I want to quickly announce the Upswing Poker Black Friday sale. That's right, all Upswing courses will be 25% off from November 22nd to November 26th. If you've been on the fence about a course at Upswing, now might be the time to go for it because we've never had a sale this big. Well, since last Black Friday. Okay, who writes this copy? We had one last Black Friday. We'll never have a sale this big again. Until maybe next Black Friday.
And an ace-high flop, this might be able to save Buzz.
Yeah, definitely should save Buzz. Buzz probably pays off 1-bet. I assume Garrett's going to check back this flop a bunch. Goes check, check.
Bit of an interesting flop here, ace 9 4 2 clubs. Both players not happy to see the ace. In fact, it's very likely that if Garrett was bluffing with his 4-bet, he'd use a hand like a suited ace or ace queen or ace jack. And so now a lot of Garrett's bluffs have even improved to top pair. Over in Buzz's shoes, he can have a few aces himself. Ace queen suited, ace jack suited, maybe even ace 10 suited could make some sense. Possibly an ace king that was a little bit conservative pre-flop, not that unreasonable either. Buzz checks it over to Garrett, who then decides to check back, and I like this play. There's not that much value in betting here. Yeah, if he bets really small, he might get a call from hands like 10s, but what does he do if he gets raised? These are going to be some difficult spots for him, so check it back, play some turns, and let's go from there.
Both players with a club in their hand. And both players turn a club draw. I could see this going any way. I could see it going check, bet, call, check, bet, fold. But no, Buzz is actually going to bet here. And this is interesting because what is Buzz going to get called by? And what is he going to get to fold here? He bets 2,600.
I think Garrett's only bluffs here that Buzz beats is something like 6-5 suited.
I don't even think that Garrett is
And
4-betting king-queen that often with Buzz's stack.
Oh, that's right. It's a 4-bet. So, yeah, it should be a narrow range spot.
I mean, I guess Garrett could have a hand like queen-jack suited, and Buzz is just betting for protection. Not really sure, but Garrett makes the call. He's got a club.
The turn's a card that both players are a little excited to see. Another club on the board. Both players have a club in their hand, so now they both have flush draws, although Garrett still has him completely clobbered here. Not only does he have the higher pair, but he has the higher flush draw, so Buzz is up the creek without a paddle. Here, Buzz decides to fire 2,600 bucks. Not a huge fan of this. The problem with this bet is that Buzz can have plenty of other worse hands that he might want to go ahead and bluff with, but his hand has so much equity. If he bets here and gets raised in a bad spot, and even though that's unlikely, I typically don't like to select hands to bet where that's the situation. Now, here's maybe a counterpoint to that analysis. Let's say that Buzz is going to play very tight pre-flop. Let's say he would fold a hand like 8s. Let's say he doesn't really have hands with one club in him. Well, all of a sudden, 10s might be towards the bottom of his range. So while I probably lean towards a check here in Buzz's position, if he thinks this is one of his worst hands, he does have some equity, and all of a sudden I don't mind this play too much. Over to Garrett, pretty simple decision here. He's got queens, he's got the flush draw, he's in position, really nowhere he can go. He does decide to call, and let's take a river.
River is a 6. If Buzz shoves here, that would put Garrett in a weird spot if Buzz decides to turn it into a bluff. If Buzz checks, I don't know if Garrett will check back or go for value. Depends what type of range he puts Buzz on here when he calls a 4-bet and bets turn.
For like 5 hours, you know.
4,000 to go.
Wow, and now he's bluffing. So now he's turning his hand into a bluff. He's trying to get a hand specifically like jacks, queens, or kings to fold. And let's hear the table talk.
Why not just bet it? There's so much out there. Just bet it all, right? I don't know why you didn't, though. Save some money in case you're bluffing?
Yes.
Is that really why?
10 seconds.
Suck me into calling, I guess? 4,000, that's crazy, man. Just bet the rest of it.
Can he change his mind?
You already, you know I don't fold hands, right? Like I'm the worst ever. Like just the worst folder. Like I'm so bad at it. It's like disgusting. Like my hand's not very good here.
The river comes in offsuit 6, and Buzz decides to keep firing. And I like this play from Buzz. Generally speaking, when you start bluffing, keep bluffing. It's okay every now and then to check fold, particularly on some bad cards where your opponent improves a lot, but you want to make sure when you start telling a story, you keep telling that story. Buzz can definitely have some sets here. He can have some flushes. He can have some good aces. There are plenty of hands Buzz can credibly represent, and it's time to bluff. While I like Buzz's decision to bet, I don't like his bet size. If you do decide to fire that last bullet and the pot's bigger than what you got left in your stack, you got to move in. You got to put them into as tough a decision as possible. Don't save a little money for the road, unless I guess you really need that money, in which case don't be playing this game. But regardless, don't bet with a little bit left behind. Just move in and give yourself the best chance to get your opponent to fold. Now over to Garrett. Bit of a tough situation here with pocket queens, but there is something good about having queens in this spot. If Buzz is betting for value, ace-queen is a super likely hand that would 3-bet and call a 4-bet. Ace-jack and ace-10 not as likely. Ace-king might 5-bet pre-flop. And so having specifically queens is pretty nice because you block his main value bet with top pair. Normally on the channel, this is where we conclude the video with some nerdy math shit that nobody likes. But today, that's not the case, because we're going into the world of live reads. Warning. The following actions are not advisable for all poker players. Viewer discretion is advised. Here's the thing, it's my #1 piece of advice for players when they bluff on the river. If you're new to poker, or you're not comfortable, you're not fully well-rounded in this, don't do it. Don't talk, because good players will pick you apart and they'll think about what you say. And it only takes saying one stupid thing to get you caught, and then you're going to lose the hand. However, if you think you got the stuff to be able to talk on the river and be able to do it in a way that might lead your opponent astray, you can go for it, but you're playing a dangerous game and you might get caught. Let's go ahead and take a listen at some of the chit chat.
Like my hand's not very good here.
No, if you, I was saying if you want, we can bet it up. It's hard though.
Oh,
You want him to put it in? You want him to
I
put it in?
understand. Right, so you were, I got it.
You want to give him the option?
All right, so you're saying your hand's very good.
Okay.
It's better than mine. It's like ace-jack.
Would you like the option to put the rest in?
Yeah.
Can
If that's okay, I don't care. I don't care if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much anymore,
No,
huh?
we're definitely not doing that.
Oh.
I was just confused
Okay,
about.
that's a relief.
So yeah, you win. Yeah, you win.
Really?
I don't know. I
I
guess.
got money for the Uber.
First off, it's amazing to me how immediately on the money Garrett is here. He just thinks to himself, well, why would someone leave 2,200 behind? The only conclusion he can draw is, does he want to save a little bit of money on the bluff? You can't feel too good here as the other guy. I think when Buzz responds so quickly to this question, it's a little bit of a tell, because Garrett isn't really even asking Buzz what he has. He's really just trying to figure it out. He's thinking out loud, like, what do you have? What hands make sense here for my opponent? And so let's just say that Buzz has a flush in this spot. When Garrett says, are you really bluffing to save yourself some money, or whatever exactly he says, would you really be like, yes, when you have a flush? I don't think so. I think you're going to let Garrett continue to talk because you're not that worried about what's going on. But I do think it's a bit of a defense mechanism when someone says exactly what you're doing. You want to seem opposite. You want to seem like you have a good hand. And so in these situations, when someone immediately responds in this kind of way, I don't think that it's really planned, and it means that they're really paying attention to what you're saying. All of these things kind of lead me more along the lines towards a bluff. There's another classic rule in poker, which is, and really in life, I suppose, which is when someone is trying to seem strong, they're usually weak, and when someone is trying to seem weak, they're usually strong, because people don't like to telegraph their hand. I will say, if you get down to small enough stakes, people probably only talk when they have it because they're just too scared to do anything else otherwise. But typically at mid to higher stakes, something that I've seen is that when people have a good hand, they tend to not want to do anything that might make their opponent not want to call them. And when they have a bad hand, they're a little bit more likely to wheel and deal. You do have to know the player, though. Some players will just never talk when they're bluffing because it's scary and they don't want to give something away. What you should do, my advice to you, the viewer, is if you don't know whether you can talk when you're bluffing, then just don't talk at all, because it's much better to only talk in situations where you know that you can do it in a balanced way rather than talk and potentially give away some info. As we see more of the table chatter, you can tell Buzz is basically saying like, oh yeah, we can put in the rest of the money if you want, like I'm okay doing that. Which again, this is kind of the classic, like Buzz is saying, I'm really strong here. I'm fine to put all the money in if you want. But you didn't put all the money in. You bet 4,000. So when you're trying to seem strong here, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. You're basically saying, I'm really strong, but would you do that with a good hand? And here's the thing. I'm not saying Buzz wouldn't, okay? There are people that balance this well. This is why at higher stakes, you got to be careful with trying to go with these reads, and why a lot of people, might excel at lower limits with reads like this, but might not at higher limits. But the point still remains, in a situation where you don't know if someone's balanced, if you do want to go a little bit with the live reads, weak means strong and strong means weak is one of the best reads that you can go with.
10 seconds.
Long ass Uber ride to China.
I guess I'll call him.
3,000.
Yes.
Alright, he called. I guess you win.
Okay.
Holy shit.
Art goes, fuck. Really? Just got the whole fucking world anti-sweating me. It's such a joke.
Thanks for joining me today. We got a lot of holiday poker content coming up, so hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.